Whoa. I prepared a little script for myself. This isn't for you. This is so that I can remember what I'm talking about, really. And it is online, and you can get it if you want it. A couple of weeks ago, if I'd had this meeting, I'd have tried to teach you about open money. And that would be very hard work. It's a bit like eating a turkey dinner and a Thanksgiving dinner all at once. Open money, the whole concept of community currencies is both huge and tiny. It's like that little grain of rice that goes kaboom in all directions. And generally speaking, to try and explain open money takes several sessions because people have got to go away and recover between them. Really, you know, your mind just goes sideways, turns into porridge. So a couple of weeks ago, that's what I'd have done. And in a couple of weeks, I'd do something different from what I'm going to do today. Today, what I'm going to try and do is give you the trailer for the movie that's just about to show up. I'm going to give you the menu, not the meal. I'm going to give you the components of the process. I'm going to give you some sort of an oversight of what we intend to generate in the Vancouver region in the next few weeks and months. And the good news about this is that it's pig simple. It's very, very simple. And it's got to be simple because if it's not simple, it's not going to propagate. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take you through the general, see, you can't see it all, it's really a bit hopeless. I'm going to tell you what money's about, that's down here, and then we're going to explain a bit lower, a bit over here, a bit of that, and then I'm going over there, and then yeah. But it's all right, I've got it on two other little devices that keep me alive, so I'll be able to stay in touch for this for a fair bit of it. Okay, that's the first part of the warning, is you're not getting open money, you're getting the primer to it, you're getting the trailer. Second thing I've got to warn you about is that sacred economics is very powerful stuff, but it's only one part of the deal. You cannot have the sacred without the profane. You can't have saints without sinners. And sure as hell, what's going to make the world change around money is not that we all become saints. It'll take a long time. Now, I know this is a highly enlightened room. I know everybody here has done a lot of work on their personal selves, etc., etc. But imagine that we had to wait for the rest of the world to reach the same level of enlightenment as those of us in this room before anything would work. It would take a long time. So relax. It's not about getting enlightened. It's just about having a simple understanding and a means to implement it. Something to do, and you do it. And the simple thing you do is use money that goes round rather than just continuing to use the money we've got at the moment, which goes away. I mean, this is pretty much the insight to the process. I don't know how many of you have read the Village Vancouver newsletter this week. How many people read the Village Vancouver? The rest of you are missing out. Village Vancouver website, look at the March newsletter, read the first essay in there by my good friend Jordan Bober. He's writing about Shambhala, the Shambhala warriors. And the Shambhala warriors embody the relationship of compassion and insight. Now, it's important to have compassion, otherwise you're not moved. But it's very important to have insight, otherwise you're just going to go round and round in circles. Movement in itself, passion in itself, is no damned use unless you know where to put it. So the message I'm offering this evening is the simple insights. And by insights, I mean you'll be able to look into your own experience and see that what I'm proposing to you fits. If it doesn't, it doesn't, but I'm pretty sure you'll find that it does. And then, basically, you'll get to the place where you're sufficiently confident in this idea that you're willing to share it with others. And that's been our biggest problem in this process. Everybody knows a lot about money from their world experience, and they don't understand much about it, but it completely captivates a lot of their inner psyche, their taboo systems, their symbol patterns, all sorts of stuff goes on about money. And as soon as you introduce a counterpoint to that, you're dragging in all of that conversation and confusion. And if you try and explain, suppose I've got it really clear with you what community money is about, and then you go home and you try and explain it to your partner. Your partner is going to ask you one question that you don't know the answer to, and you're never going to mention it again. Now, the concept of a meme, people know that? Like a gene for physical material, the gene is the patterning element for biological progression. The meme is the informational component. A commercial jingle is a meme. A catchline is a meme. A behavior is a meme. A dance step is a meme. Memes move through society because people can copy them easily, can replicate them, and find it satisfactory, so that you see me doing it, so that you do it. Then she sees you doing it, so she's doing it. So it just moves by that contagious process. And in the process of transforming our economies, this city, this province, this continent, it's not going to happen by meetings like this, where somebody speaks wisely for half an hour or 4 hours or whatever, and you get your head swung around with it, because we'd have to fill the room again and again and again and again. What makes the difference is that we can take this idea to 20, 30, 40 people, and some of those people will be able to take it to another 20, 30 people, and some of those will be able to take it to some more after that. So the critical thing about moving transformation through our economy is giving people a simple idea that they can pass on to others without feeling stupid, without feeling at risk of being called on it, because the thing that people fear most on the planet is being thought foolish. If people think you're foolish, then you've lost your vote, you've lost your credibility, you have no leverage. So people are very, very careful. I know I am very, very careful that nobody gets a chance to think I'm an idiot. Right? You know, it's a consternation area. So the meme that we have to generate that is going to be effective for people to pass onwards is very simple. And I'll give it to you again. That money goes away. Our money goes round. Not complicated. Now, that's a bit of an abstraction, so there's got to be practical elements to that. And the practical element is basically, do you buy it? You know, when I get a loaf of bread and pass a couple of bucks over for the loaf of bread, I'm basically saying the bread is more valuable to me than a $2 bill. So I'm willing to part with the money for this stuff, for that. Now, when we talk to people about changing money, we mean literally that. We want people to change from using conventional Canadian money to using progressively more and more community monies, plural. You know, commercial drive money, a Vancouver East money, a women's money, a youth money, a gay money, a left-hander's money, like any tribe you like. These are all tribal economies, you know? Not the old tribe. I'm not talking about the tribe where I'm on this side of the river, you're on that, and we hate each other, and that's life. Not balkanization, not segregation. The new tribe is connectivity. Is how many affinities do you manifest in the way that you live your world. Every one of those tribes is capable of being augmented and enhanced by having its own tribal currency. Dead easy. Money that goes around that network. Maybe it's a childcare co-op, maybe it's a tool share, maybe it's a learning exchange of some sort, or whatever it is that you set up a network for, The money moves around and empowers people in the giving and getting that is available to them. It's all got to move around. Now, there are going to be questions and answers at the end of this event, if I get to them quickly enough. And it's going to be a bit of high-speed stuff in the middle. Normally I would take questions and answers as we go along, but this is not normal. We don't have enough time. We've only got about 45 minutes to clear through the whole context of this, so it's going to be a bit bang bang. The end of it, if we get there, we'll be able to pick up some pieces, and there'll be a bit of a breakdown at the end. Plenty of time for people to bring personal questions about this. And besides, there may be some place we can go to after we close down where we can carry on. And there will be more meetings. So don't feel at any way at a loss for information. There's plenty of it. We can get more and more to you. Now, last warning before you tighten your seatbelts. About 40 years ago, I saw a stage show by one of the people who did the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the radio show. Did anybody ever see the beginnings of that stuff? It was crazy, very wild. Anyway, one of the actors had a one-man show. You get everybody in the room like this, and he said, "Listen, I'm sorry, I don't quite know why I brought you here, but these people met me on the hillside. They came from outer space, and they said I should hold this meeting and just see what happens." And of course, 10 seconds later, he's taken over by the alien. He's from the planet Zog. And he's transformed the theater into a spaceship, and now you're all in Zog. Which is good, because on the planet Zog, they have the concept of positive paranoia. The planet Zog is a conspiracy organized expressly for everybody's total benefit. Nothing can go wrong, everything is right, everything is wonderful. So we had a very entertaining hour. Trouble was, he then brought us back to Earth. Another analogy is the heaven and hell thing about the banquet where people are trying to eat, but their arms are broken and they've got plastic casts and they can't feed themselves. You know that one? When they feed each other, it becomes heaven. Now, those two analogies are sort of close to where we're going. I got to say, wherever I take you this evening is not to a different planet, and when we come out of here, it's the same place. But with any luck, you'll be able to see it a bit differently. You'll be able to see it in a way which is sort of like that feed your neighbor model. So what I'd like you to do is contemplate the extremely odd and unusual possibility that in the next hour you're going to discover some things that are going to completely change your world. From the inside and from your own awareness and from your own understanding of what is possible. And for some of you it'll happen bang like that somewhere. Some of you it'll take 2 or 3 weeks, maybe 2 or 3 months. But the process that we're beginning here tonight will work upon your attention and your awareness in such a way that at some point or other you will get it. It will drop into place for you what it actually means to have money that goes around in community versus money that goes straight through and out. And it is transformative. Now, this is an interesting situation. I mean, how many of you have had a paradigm shift in the last couple of weeks? 1, 2, 3? Good stuff, isn't it? Nice stuff to have a paradigm shift, if it's an up one, right? Did you know it was coming? You didn't know it was coming, did you? You expected it, right? Yeah. Now, when you expect a paradigm shift, you get to watch it. Now, you're not actually watching it, you're watching yourself. And that's fascinating. So, bear in mind that just about everybody on the planet currently uses money that they're used to in the way that they're used to because they see it the way that they see it, and that's all there is to it. And over the next several years, perhaps decades, virtually everybody on the planet is going to start using community currencies. It's not saying they're going to stop using the other money. That's another story. But they are going to start using community currencies. And for some of them, it'll be a major shift in their awareness, and one that is predictable. And this may do an awful lot to our sense of self in society. But that's a whole other discussion. But for your part, please entertain the possibility that when you leave here tonight, you'll be seeing the world in a different way. Maybe a little bit different, maybe a lot. But I ask that you entertain that possibility because, frankly, if you don't entertain the possibility, there's very little likelihood of it, is it? So, being open to the possibility is where we begin from. Now, up on the top right, beside the thing there, the gift is not priced. I read Charles's book a few months before it was published, and there was one reference in it to a book by Lewis Hyde. Let me know the book, The Gift, by Lewis Hyde. It's a lovely book. It was written in '79. I thought it was ancient, but it was written quite recently. At least in my life, that's quite recent. I only started in this work in '82, so that one was just there before me. But I'd never seen it. Charles's reference to it was the transformative gift. Now, if I want a loaf of bread, $2 or whatever, you know, there's a fair understanding of what it's worth. If I want an experience from some guru or some training or some experience, how do I put a value on it? And particularly, how do I put a value on it before I've experienced it? And in fact, often the act of putting a value on something depresses its value. Putting a price on it, putting a cost. So one of the things I want to make clear is that everything about open money is a gift. If you have to pay for open money, it is not open money. I mean the concept, the delivery. Money is, by its nature, more a matter of the commons than the private. But as Charles pointed out, most of our economy is concerned with privatizing the commons, with enclosure, with restricting, with propertizing things. And they would propertize money, have done for 2,000–3,000 years. Open money is the money that is not property. It's in the commons and it's free. This is why the entry here was for the hospitality of eternal abundance. Your tea and your cookie, that's what you're paying for, because that's what you got. The rest of this is just a gift, and it's a gift that you create. So that's the factor I want to put in there. Okay, can we pull back so that I can see where else I am? Right, come down to this corner a bit, will you please, sir? And what is it about money? Money. Let's bring up the website on that. This is it. Now, this is the economic condition that I live in. I have a bucket, it has money in it. When I spend the money, the level decreases, the money flows away. I pray for money to come in from somewhere to keep the level going up. Right? Does anybody have a different world than that? No, I mean, this is it. And it's the same whether you're a business, you know, this business here, right? Money in, money out. Yeah. 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 It's the same for a local government. It's the same for a non-profit. It's the same for a multinational corporation. Same thing. Money in, money out. Next graphic, please. And the problem is, once it's out, it's gone. Now, you know, they talk about your money, you know? Get the best for your money. Put your money in my bank, right? All that stuff, right? It's not your money. If it was your money, it would have some loyalty. It's not your money, it's their money. Look at the damn stuff. It's stuff that moves away and has nothing to do with you. When I pay some money to my neighbor for something and I give him the money, it's no longer my money, it's his money. The value has gone with the money. And it's that pattern of stuff which isn't me, doesn't belong to me, and over which I have no control. And I'm going to take one point about Charles's comment that money is a form of agreement. Bullshit. I never agreed to that stuff. Did any of you agree to that? I didn't see agreement. I saw compliance, acceptance, tolerance, inevitability, all sorts of shit. But I never saw any agreement about it. Anyway, the nature of this stuff is, it's a goner. You're stuck between an uncertain supply, because you don't know where it's coming from really, and it can get cut off the day after tomorrow. And you don't know where it's going, except it's gone away. Because that's its nature. It is valuable. The money is valuable. You're not. Once you've parted with the money, you have no value anymore. It's the way this game is played. So we're stuck between supply and demand with an uncertain control over the situation. This is the classic prescription for creating an addictive dependency. Something that you need, but you can't be sure you're going to get it. That's going to drive you crazy, and it's kept us all running like mad buggers in little treadmills for the last 200-300 years. The need to have money. Where'd you get it from? Don't know, but I got to go get it. Well, that's the world we're in. Okay, what are we going to do about that? Well, I know there are people working on banking reform. I know there are people that want to get a new political regime that will change the way that we address our fiscal policies, and I know this, and I know that, and I know the other, and I know that there's very little I personally can do about it. And frankly, I don't even believe they're going to do anything about it either. Everything I've understood about the monetary reform movements suggests it's a hell of a struggle, and it's not going to change a hell of a lot. If anybody has a different opinion, they are totally welcome to it, of course. And I don't suggest that people don't look for electoral reform, for monetary reform, for changing banking laws, etc., etc. Absolutely. It's just that I don't expect much to come of it. And even if it does, it wouldn't have changed the graphic before. Up again. It will not change that. We will still be dealing with an external, valuated carrier, the dollar, that we are just the users of, or maybe it's the users of us. We are the used by it. Anyhow, you can't change the basic components of that. You can change some of the parameters, but you can't change the basic game. That's the problem. It's also the opportunity. And that takes us to the next slide. Now, when we got, I got into community money when we had none. In 1982 in the region around here, the bank interest was 14%, and mortgages were running at 20%. And you can imagine what that did to everybody's disposable expenditure. It just disappeared. And so it was as though we all had barrels, but there was absolutely nothing in it. So we thought to ourselves, okay, if money is an imaginary thing, and we recognize that part of the deal, let's imagine an imaginary barrel with some imaginary money in it, and an imaginary level in that imaginary barrel with an imaginary money in it. And that's what it looked like. And then my neighbor, next graphic please, Jordan, if I wanted to trade with somebody else, when I spend, my level goes down, their level goes up. It would be the same if we had some of our own barrels, but these are totally imaginary, so we started out with the levels going up and down. So, if you extend that, in the next graphic, well, that's really difficult to see. But think, if you can see, these are just spot plates, levels. And as one person spends to another, one level goes up, one level goes down. So a community of people using an internal money for their network is just a bunch of trampolines going up and down. Everybody starts at zero. And if I spend some money with Andrew, I go down, Andrew goes up. Andrew spends some money with you, you go up, he goes down. And it's just this up and down thing. Now, my education as a kindergarten teacher tells me that at this point you have to get people doing things. So I want you each to take a hand and hold it flat, and then think of it going up and down. And imagine that every time it goes up, somebody has received a service from you. So you've given something to somebody. I mean, maybe a loaf of bread, maybe a pint of beer, maybe a haircut, maybe a massage, maybe some good advice. Every time your level goes down, somebody has given something to you. And all that's going on is this little up and down. Thank you, I appreciate people who keep the up and down going. Because once this starts, it's just an ongoing hum. It's just up and down within that network. Now, it could be a network of 40 people, in which case it's a pretty tight reciprocity. What I do suddenly energizes other people in my network. So there's a high rate of return. It's like, I don't know, playing ping pong in a small room, crowded, balls flying all over the place, gets very busy. On the other hand, if it had 40,000 people in this system, then when I spend money, my account goes down, and other people somewhere in 40,000 go up. It'll take quite a long time for me to directly experience that 40,000 people want something from me. Or it may do at least. Bigger systems contain more variety. It means that you can have pharmaceutical companies and symphony orchestras and brain surgeons and all sorts of very specialized activities in a large society, which in a group of 40 people, you're not likely to find that many of. So a network of 40 to 100 people is very good for social, for neighborhood, for tools exchange, for childcare, for joint learning, for joint ventures, a group of people putting together a project to build a theater, build a bakery or something. But they're quite small. And our society these days is built upon specialization and differentiation. And some of us do work that is only relevant to one person in 1,000. So we've got to be part of a large community so that there are people that we can actually provide services to. So this basic model, which you can hardly see, but it's the basic model, that's probably an analogy as well. But one of the sweet things about money is you can't actually see it. You know, if all of a sudden people gave up bicycles and took up pogo sticks, you would certainly see it, right? It wouldn't look the same outside. It would be going boing, boing, boing instead of round, round. But if people change from using community, conventional money to using community money, you won't see a thing. It will not be apparent what is happening. I mean, you might see some changes at the point of sale. People are using a different currency, a different card, a different phone payment or something. But it looks like they're just coming into the store and buying stuff and leaving. Or going to the restaurant, having a meal and leaving. That's what they were doing already. But they're doing it with a different network of connectivity and using a different flow of relationship between the parties. So it's different. But you can't see it. For years, we'd have television producers come to our place in the Commons Valley and say, show us the community currency. You can't. It's transparent. It's there. It's available. You can see what it is. We can explain what it is, but you can't see it working because it's so transparent. Oh, that's making you think. So, this is the core of what we call the mutual credit, up and down, reciprocity, give and get, move it around. You could measure it in dollars, and most of the systems that will happen will be measured in dollars, because dollars is what we know to measure with. And it works for accounting and taxation and all sorts of other things. On the other hand, you could be measuring it in hours. For instance, if it was a child care network or a skills exchange network or a time bank, the measure of the transaction between two people is so many hours or so many minutes. It could be kilowatt hours. It could be an energy-based system. It could be food futures. It could be the number of zucchini that you're going to be able to trade with each other at the end of the summer or something. So the currency measure inside any single network is entirely particular to that network, and it can be anything that that group of people and users decide to use. You should expect that you'll be using, most of you, between 5 and 10 different community currencies. There'll obviously be a local one like Grandview or Kitsilano or whatever. There'll also be definitely a Vancouver currency, several of them. Mainstream will be just about everybody will use it. Ultimately, just about every business will use it. Every business. I mean, you know, BC Tel and Overweighty, the lot. Because if they don't use the money, they won't have the business. If they don't have the business, they won't be in business. So they're going to use the money. And that's not bad, it's actually good. It means that we're actually civilizing the corporate economy. And I don't know another way to do it. Corporate economy is a very evil thing. And we've got to find a way of getting ahead of it and making it subservient to the economy and the community rather than exploitative of it. So, what sort of currencies might you have? Well, think about how many tribes you're in. For instance, how many left-handers in the room? Hands up? Okay. You'd have to have a left-hander's currency, right?
Of course.
Okay. How many cyclists? How many people ride bikes? There are going to be wheels. There'll be a currency for bikers. No doubt about it. Skiers. Right? Gay? Lesbian? Better be a pink pound. There's going to be you know, the money is going to be all colors, all sorts, and there will definitely be gay money. There'll be corporate networks. There'll be a Canucks fans money. Oh yeah, this is not new. We were 15 years ago trying to get one of the Dutch football teams to start a youth card for their young supporters and a currency for their kids. They didn't think it was a good idea. But they will, in due course. It'll come to them. Now, these currencies are like the condiments in your main meal. You know, you won't be using more than maybe 15–20% of your monthly expenditures and earnings in community money, not for a while. In maybe 10 years, we'll be up to a much better level. It'll be maybe 50, maybe 80% of your income and expenditure could be in community currencies. But right at the beginning, you've got to look at it as it's a side effect. It says, I use this restaurant and this cafe, and I use this grocery store, and I use these health practitioners, and I do this and that and the other because they take this money, and I like to see the money going around. And it'll be about 10, 15% of your in and out economy. It won't be a lot bigger. And most of that will be in 2 or 3 of those currencies. Some of the currencies you're only going to use about twice a year. Suppose you've got a graduating class from your high school or your university or something like that. You might actually be trading with somebody through that network, you know, once or twice a year, just to maintain that network of identification. So it won't be a big thing, but it'll be an interesting thing that retains a tribal network and identity that otherwise would likely just dissipate on its own. So they're not to be forgotten, even though they are small and occasional. But the mainstream will be quite simply the money you spend on the buses, the money you spend in cafes, the money you spend on clothes, the money you spend on rent. Progressively, you'll be able to use more and more community money to do that. But it's very much a chicken-egg cycle, or rather it's chicken-egg. The chicken-egg argument's always difficult, but if you bring in the third one, the chick, you always know which way you're going around. It goes chicken, egg, chick. See? Always need three things. And the main thing we've got to get going at this stage in the business is the business community, because, you know, most of you don't spend money with each other at all. Most of us, we go to the grocery store, we go to the gas station, we pay our rent, and that's where most of our money goes, on those material, whatever. If you check out your friends and try and work out how much of your annual income and expenditure comes directly through friend-to-friend exchanges and purchases and payments, you'll find it's trivial, very, very small. And the reason for that is that it's, well, two reasons. One is that it's imprudent to mix friendship and money in the normal way. Because normal money puts us into this terrible, I've only got so much, so if I'm dealing with you, I want to give you as little as money as I can for as much as you're going to give me. Right? Most for the least. I want the most effect for the least payment. And if I turn to my boss, for whom I'm doing some work, I've got the same thing. I want to give him, well, I want to give him the least work for the most money. So my situation in relation to anybody that I'm dealing with conventional money is driven by my fear of being out of it, and it definitely counters any sense of generosity. It's very difficult to be generous with conventional money, not without taking a bit of a risk in the loss. And that's why, between friends, it's much more appropriate never to use money. There's a Scottish saying that if you mix friends and money, you're going to lose them both. Don't do it. I was Scottish once, so I believe in it. So, what I wanted to do with that process is give you the abstracts of the situation. Conventional money, it's a goner. You spend it, it spins around, and it's away. You have no control, and you're left praying for the next stuff to come in. That's an extremely unpleasant way to live your life. And you could do the rest of your life that way, and it will still be the same. We're just saying, if you can use money in that way, how would it be if you had another money that when you moved it, it meant to another person who then spent it with somebody else, who then spent it with somebody else, kept it inside some sort of a circle, some sort of a loop, and basically it came back to you. It's not magically. Now this is, I'm going to put this one in here because I can never resist it, it's too good. Whenever we talk about community currencies, people start saying, well, yeah, but how can we trust these? How can we make sure they work? How can we be sure that he's not going to do something bad and leave us all in trouble? You know, because everybody's worried about somebody else. Well, the thing about these sort of bouncing plates is you can consider your bouncing plate in the middle of the zone of everybody else. And then when you spend, your money sort of goes to people around you. Think of it as downwards. It sort of fills the cycle process. So you spend your money to people all around you, and suddenly people all around you on a sort of a slightly higher level are spending their money back on you. And you don't know how the money you spent got to these people who are now spending it on you. You don't know how that happened, and you have no control over it, and frankly, it's none of your business. Your only business in one of these community currencies is to mind your own business. That is, make sure that when you spend the money, you get value. You're not just scattering it and being trivial. So if you spend 50 bucks on getting a haircut, make sure it's a good haircut. Second thing is, when somebody hires you, give value for the money. Now, if you're in the middle of this zone and you're giving value when you're earning it and you're getting value when you're spending it, then you are a value creator by your earning and spending, irrespective of anybody else in the network. And you would hope, of course, that they're following the same ethical presumptions and making their world work too. But we have this dread that in such a network, if somebody loses it, or is a jerk, or takes off to Rio, then we're all crashed and burned. The system has failed. The sky has fallen. This is not the case at all. These things are extraordinarily resilient. They will withstand a huge amount of idiocy and incomprehension, particularly if there are some people in the system who understand what's going on. I earn, I spend, I keep myself in line, and then my part in the network is actually the exact reciprocal of that. Like if I'm down $1,000 in this system, committed 1,000, it means that the rest of the system as a whole is 1,000 positive. If I'm 1,000 positive, it means the rest of the system as a whole in relation to me is 1,000 negative. So basically, I am the mirror of the system that I'm operating in. So it's a useful idea just to have in there. And what's going on in that system is relationship. Somebody who is down 50 and somebody else who's up 100, they're separated by about 150 units of distance. And if the person who has the money spends it to the effect of the person who has commitment earns it, i.e. we come back to a center line, we have expressed our relationship. We didn't swap a thing of value. There's no gold coinage, there's no legal tender, there's no short supply of stuff. What we're doing is participating in a reciprocation, a giving and a getting, that is not just reflecting our relationship, but it is building and enhancing and persisting it. Now, by contrast, conventional money with the flow through builds a relationship of alienation, of separation between people, of mixed agendas. So the difference between money which thinks it is valuable, conventional money, and money which knows it is the relationship between its users is profound. It's absolute. It's about as different as AC from DC, as noise from music. You know, both of them are vibrations in the air, but there's a hell of a lot of difference to what they mean and what they produce for us. And we have really no idea how the perpetuation and the propagation of systems like this is going to realize in terms of a new society. I've been trying to work out how it's going to work out for 20-something years now, and it just continues to elude my imagination. This is far bigger than I can put my head around. The difference between ambient light, this stuff, and a laser is simply the resonance of the laser beam. The laser beam is a tuned harmonic movement of light. It's the tuning of that harmonic that means lasers do things that you can't do with a flashlight. And that's why we have all of our technology at the moment, is because a laser is not incoherent light. And the money that we are going to be using in the next 10 years is going to progressively take on the same characteristic distinctions, that it is coherent, harmonic, and it creates patterns of value. Whereas the current money does exactly the opposite. That's about enough of that, don't you think? I mean, that's basically the problem, right? We got money that's going through, we got money that goes around. We can have money that's going around. But can you imagine trying to explain that to somebody? At a practical level. Trying to get your boss to put the business into this thing. It's not going to happen from that level of description and analysis. You need to give people something extremely concrete. Again, if if you've never seen a bicycle before, and I'm up here trying to explain how a bicycle works, you know, nobody's going to get on a bicycle because of how it is described. Nobody's going to get on a bicycle, you know, because they read about it in a book. Nobody's going to go and study bicycles online so that they can take up biking. The way you deal with a bike is you get your butt in the saddle and you start moving. If you're not on it, you're not going to get it. So it's the same thing here. We're only going to be able to get an understanding of this money when we have tangible ways to engage in its use and become confident in this stuff will buy me bread, this stuff will get me beer, this stuff will get me a haircut. This stuff is valuable. Once I've got it that this stuff is valuable and it's built into my experience, then I'm progressively more confident in the process. I think it's time for a bit of community way. So, right, here it is, there it is. There's the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth, at least a good bit of it. Lead systems and community currencies generally operate between people in this zone. Commercial barter has been operating business-to-business networks for about 40 years now, and it's very prolific. There's about $40 billion a year goes through commercial barter exchanges that are doing essentially open money business-to-business. But we've had a lot of difficulty getting people in business together. Basically, people don't trust business and business doesn't trust people. It's the nature of their relationship, and it's been that way for a long time. But we found that if we go around the corner and bring in the third party of community groups, then there's a possibility for kicking off a very substantial method of kick-starting an ethical community currency that starts with businesses supporting community effects and then people supporting those by buying the money and going back to the businesses that started it. I'm going to run through this quickly on the slideshow, please. There's a slideshow at the top there. This bit, yeah. Starts with, there's the whole picture, and it links the three components. The starting is businesses making donations in community money. Now, this is like Canadian Tire money, eternal abundance money. You donate eternal abundance money to some projects in their region. It's not cash, so nothing comes out of your bank account. The business simply says, we like the school, we like the hospital, we like this fund, we like that. And it declares, well, we're aiming at $1,000 per employee in donations. That's $1,000 community dollars per employee in donations to charitable organizations, schools, projects, whatever. So, negative, positive. Carrying on. Now, once the community organizations have got this money, which are promises by the businesses to provide services, they can directly spend it back with the businesses, they can support staff, they can do up payments to volunteers, all sorts of stuff. But what we want is more typically that this group of people sponsor the process by buying cash from the beneficiary groups. So, for instance, suppose it's a school, and the school has a bunch of community money in its band fund, or its athletics fund, or its computer fund, or its Let's Travel to Europe fund. Then I, as a parent, can go in and I can put down $500, and I can get 500 community dollars. Now that's good for the school because they've now got cash. It's good for me because I was able to get my kid over to Europe. And it's good for me because I've still got $500, which I can then spend in the businesses. So this is the choice. And go back one with you there, please, Jordan. That is the moving mean. Getting people to buy money from good causes that they can spend in good businesses. Doesn't hurt them, produces major value for the non-profits, produces loyalty for the businesses that are supporting the non-profits, and that's something I'm very much in favor of. I'm fed up with the Chamber of Commerce talking about shop local, it's good for us all. It isn't. And there's a lot of scam businesses that are basically relying upon that limitation for their benefit. But they don't spend the money back in the community, and they certainly don't support the community projects. So in this case, the money that somebody can buy from the school or the hospital or the Greenpeace or whatever is money that they got from the businesses, and thereby they take their trade back to the businesses that are good for the community. That's the basic model. Now, carrying on one more, Jordan, please. Where do we get to? What happened there? Oh yeah, each business controls a percentage. So a restaurant would be 50% cash, 50% community money. A grocery store, maybe 20% community, 80% cash. That's what makes it safe for the businesses to do this. They cannot lose money if they do it that way. All they're doing is good in the community and expanding their market into new loyalties. And because it's many businesses involved in this, when a business has collected a bunch of this money, they don't just have to bank it back in and say goodnight. They can spend it on to other businesses. Supplies, upgrades, new materials. They can pay staff bonuses. They can improve wage rates. And there's a hell of a lot of wage rates in this community that could be improved very easily. I'd love to see some rates going up. And that's what the effect of creating this other layer on the economy is, that it's going to spin some action back through all the businesses that are supportive and through the people who are loyal to those businesses and so on. So we'll expect to see something like a commercial drive money supporting projects in this region. We'd expect to see stuff in Kitsilano and Kerrisdale and God knows where, place by place around the community, localized initiatives supported by localized businesses and people buying into the loop and keeping it moving around. But that's not the whole story. And in fact, some of the most interesting work is going to happen at a city scale and even beyond the city scale. And I think it's time for Jordan to now tell us about seed stock. So I hand the microphone.
I'll bring Andrew over here to describe and sing for you.
So this is Andrew and Jordan, whose project is Agora Bora, the food money.
Colors don't look very good here, but anyway, Andrew's doing a 90-second pitch tomorrow at lightning pitch at the Hive, so we drew straws and I have to talk to you guys and he gets to talk to them. So, anyways, this is also kind of a trailer to something much larger, more detailed, but we're just going to take you through a practical example of what community way can look like if it were applied to something like, say, local food in Vancouver, so that we can actually increase our food security, boost local food production, actually make it profitable for people to be a farmer. That would be a novel concept. And support food security initiatives, among other things, at the same time. So we're calling it seed stock, and it's something that Andrew and I are working on right now. But we actually would like to put it out there that we need help. We're going to need help in order to make this a reality. So if anybody is interested in perhaps learning more about this, we're going to have another meeting in 2 weeks, the 19th, same place, same time, to go into a little bit more detail on seed stock. And if that's something that you're interested in learning more about, perhaps getting involved in, come to that, and also come and talk to Andrew or I at the end, and we have contact lists that you'll be able to fill out. Anyway, so I'm going to go through a quick run through of how this works. So first of all, you see this loop. This is quite similar to the community way loop that Michael was just showing you. But we're going to see how this kind of pertains to a local food economy with money going around. If you go to the next slide. Let's take the example of a restaurant that decides to issue seed stock. They also agree that they're going to accept it in their restaurant. What do they do with that money? Well, some of it they use to start buying local food from local farmers. That would be a change for a lot of restaurants. The rest of it, they would donate to food security initiatives. So, for example, the Downtown Eastside Kitchen Tables project. Next one. Downtown Eastside Kitchen Tables project could spend that money to buy local food for its programs, or it could exchange it with members of the public. And then the public, of course, will spend it on more local food. You could bring artists into it, craft people. Local farmers now have consistent demand for their product, and they can get a fair price for it as well. Right now they have to compete with very cheap imported stuff all of the time. Then of course the farmers can spend some of that on, or they can exchange it for cash via the seed bank. Farmers are likely to accumulate more of this money than they might be able to use at first on other types of businesses, and we've got a mechanism for that. And of course, all of these guys, we've got farmers, artists, the healers, and members of the public, end up making their way back to the businesses that created the money to begin with. And then the cycle repeats itself. So, that's seed stock in a nutshell.
And it is that simple. It's a question of knitting together the components of an effective society through a money that moves to make that society effective. It's not difficult. And as soon as it's visual, as soon as it's transparent, as soon as people can get it, then they feel easy with it, and it relieves an awful lot of the, what are we talking about stuff. So what Jordan and Andrew are beginning with food can equally be approached from shelter, housing, homelessness, social housing. But that's a longer timeline. Or we could put it into energy issues, refits, solar roofs, wind generators, things like that. Again, those are going to take more time. So the initiative that these two have kicked into place is, let's get the food going. Because it's an immensely relevant piece of life for all of us. We eat, damn it. And if you can do something to get the food loop in circulation, you're going to really consolidate the opportunity for an enormous amount of our society. The other part is beer. If we can get the beer moving. You may think I'm joking, but in the 70s, there was a strike in Ireland, a bank strike, and you couldn't get money out of the bank, you couldn't put money into the bank. And the theory was that the economy had stopped dead in 20 minutes. However, the Irish are inventive, and they figured that if you couldn't get money in and out of the bank, then you could just write checks to each other, couldn't you? So they started writing checks to each other, and they started moving checks around like money. Now, it was a bit difficult, because if I had to pay you £43 and whatever, and I had to make it up with 3 checks and add it all up, it was complicated. But it really got cooking when the breweries started giving their paychecks in denominated values. So instead of paying somebody 142 quid, they'd pay him a bunch of 20 bills, well, they were £20 checks with Guinness written on them, right? So those checks were acceptable in every pub in Ireland. The Irish economy ran for an entire year entirely on brewery paper. And it was the best year the Irish had had in the 70s. They had like gas, because everybody was moving the money and you know where it was going.
That's because of taxation and interest that goes to the banks.
Well, that's another route, isn't it? Yeah. But this was just money moving around nicely. And it's this business of getting it moving. And it's like bicycles. You can't ride a bicycle so easily when it's stationary as you can when it's moving. And it's the same with this money business. We've got to get the money moving before people see it and believe it and understand it and take it seriously. And this is the sort of model, around the loop, through good causes, people buy it, go back to the businesses that are supporting it. It's a win-win for the business because it's loyalty and corporate social responsibility and no outlay of cash, and it's good. It's good for the non-profits because it's a whole new source of funding that they don't have at the moment. And if you check out what's happening in non-profit societies these days, it's dreadful. I mean, everything is being pulled back, everything being cut back. They're going into grant competition like you've never seen before. And it's great for our Conservative government. They love this shit. So, we've got to find ways of supporting our civic society, and I think this is going to be part of it. Now, let's get rid of this. In fact, you can probably clear the screen altogether for a while, because I don't think we need much more. What's this going to look like? Well, it's going to look a lot easier than you expected. It's not a struggle. It's just a simple implementation. Get some money in place and then make a point of using it. Because when you use this sort of money, you are building society. You're doing social investment in the subtlest and most powerful form. When you use the other sort of money, you are eroding your community, your society, your political base, and the planet, and the environment, and everything else within reach. So getting ourselves off the hard drug of hard money and onto this convivial social economy is, I think, the task of our generation. And I think it should be fun. But if it's no fun, it'll be no fun, will it? Just checking what am I going to be talking about now? Did that. Oh, tipping points. You see, the point about this is, there's a point in everybody's process when they thought they knew it one way, and then something clicks and they know it another. You know, it's all right, leave it here, that's good. You can see this when you're sort of rocking on something. There's a point where you rock this way and clunk and you're over. Now, we're going to start a secondary game in our networks where when you actually tip over, when you suddenly go, oh, bloody hell, then you can notify that by laying a few points on the person who tipped you over. Tipping points. Just a reputation scoring that we tend to cascade so that you can build up a sort of a genealogy of communication and meme movement. And it's going to be working on phones because these are going to be the payments mechanism. It's going to be touch and go. You'll have a little wallet on your phone. It will contain your currencies, 5 of them, 55 of them if you use that many. You'll come into the cafe, the pub, you'll just wave your phone at the till and transfers will take place.
Is that a good idea? Because the government follows everything on your phone. You can hear everything you speak.
They do already.
Yeah, I know they do already, so is that a good idea?
If they do already, I don't give a damn anymore. We have to change our world, and we don't do it by submitting to government. We do it by transcending that process, and that's it's a very deliberate social engagement. Now, I don't approve of the way our governments spend money, plural governments. I haven't seen a government anywhere that spends money intelligently, and some of them particularly badly. But I don't think that we can sort of try and duck out of the tax situation, our constitutional relationship to our society, just simply because they're a bunch of bastards. That's got to be addressed. And hopefully, community currencies will do something about that. At some stage, you'll be able to direct the taxation on your local currency tax bill. You know, and say, oh, I owe $1,500 this year. Okay, so much to the school, so much to this, so much to that, so much to submarines and fighter planes. Maybe not. Okay, rolling on. My computer's gone crazy, you can't even read it anymore. So the tipping points, what I'm doing now, so ineptly and unscripted, is going to become a major moving picture. There's going to be theatre based upon this specific process. How do you get somebody from not knowing much about this to, yeah, okay, I'll do it, in maybe 30 minutes, maybe 10? By making them the simple proposition, look, the money goes away, this stuff goes round, you can join this by buying some from there or working for this non-profit or this business and earning this money, then you're in the money loop. How about it? And you see, it's not a complicated statement when you make it that simple. It becomes hideously complicated when you have to explain why that works or why it's a good idea or anything like that. But if you can just reduce it down to something very straightforward, like take a look at the possibilities, here's a way of supporting the school and having money that you can spend in these businesses. It hurts not a lot, and you're off. Now, what we want to do is develop storefronts where people can come in, and instead of the money mart or check, cash or paycheck here, you know, it's come in here, get your own money. Come in here, see what your money can change in the world. And we see that as being storefronts. You know, there's a lot of empty commercial property around Vancouver. You rent one of these for a few weeks, you get a bunch of interested people in there, and particularly interested people under the age of 25. One of the things I like about this meeting today, and it's, I've never spoken to a group of this age, on average, before. Mainly it's old grey guys in suits, and it's different. So I just want to make the point that the average age here is way different from the ones I normally speak to. And where we're going to see the big changes are down the age scale. It's going to be the people in the 20 to 30 demographic who are going to be the fastest to pick this up, because they're the ones who are using social networking, they're the ones who are comfortable on their phones, they're the ones who can do everything at once. Anybody over my age can't do one thing at a time. So, you know, don't expect change from the elderly greys. Most of you are probably still in the range of possibilities. Some of you are getting a little old, sorry about that. But for the most part, this is going to happen through youth, and it's going to happen through youth propagating it, and we see the possibility of a little storefront of this sort of scale supporting 4 or 5 youth in paid work to kick this thing into existence. And we want to film that so that it can be templated in cities all over the planet. So that's the agenda. The inner agenda of our meme propagation model is to make that same meme propagatable in any community anywhere in the world, and within months. I'm not talking about something that's going to take 20 years to develop and then they'll come and study for 6 years to find out how it works. It should happen very fast, and that is our intent. Now, I know that you had a question there, Suresh, but I'm going to ask you to hold it so that I can finish this off, because we're down here close to it and it's getting towards the end of the timelines anyway. Oh, it's past the timeline. I'm going to return to that point that this is a gift for your own evaluation. One thing I've been able to say to any business that I talk to is that this is worth at least 10% of their annual gross. If they're a $10 million business, this information is worth at least $1 million to them in 1 year. And then $1 million the next, $1 million the next, $1 million. You know, there's a lot of value simply in the accounting bottom line in being able to implement these for any business. What does it mean to you? What does it mean to you that perhaps 10–20% of your income and expenditure is going to be in community money, and that you're going to spend it here, do this and do the other? Well, you're not in a position to evaluate this yet, but I would encourage you to think big. I would encourage you to consider that this could be a transitional shift, a transformational shift in how your world works, what your work is worth, where you can direct it, who your clients will be, what your purchasing will be, what networks you will be party to. That you will begin to see an optimism in our society rather than the cynicism and pessimism that's utterly relevant to its situation at the moment. Now, at some stage, in a couple of weeks, seed stock will be up. We'll have the startings of the food network. We'll also probably have the startings of some other networks in town here. And all of those will contain money donated by businesses to particular beneficiary charities or funds, which any one of us could buy. Quite simply say, you know, I'd rather have $100 of the seed stock than the $100 in my back pocket. Because I know what that $100 is going to do. It's going to sit there until it disappears, and then it's gone. But if I pass it over to the food co-op and I get the 100 community dollars, man, have I got something that works. I've done some good right away. And it will buy me gear, buy me food, maybe buy me beer. So basically, the point of choice for each of us is when we buy into this. When we can actually reach into our pockets and say, well, I know what this stuff does, and I'd rather have the community money than this. And when that becomes real for us, then we've gone over the tipping point and we are then actually embedded in community money, in our own money. I don't mean our own collectively, I mean my money, your money, your money, your money. Money that we create, that creates the network of our society. So that's what sits in possibility. And over the next 3 or 4 weeks, there's going to be an increasing urgency and immediacy of processes. I don't know, Zamir, do you want to announce the next meeting? And we'll just put that in the space. And then maybe I can take a couple of questions. Or do we want to break them up and throw them out right away?
No.
You're okay? He's going to
open it tomorrow.
So you just stay here.
Yes.
No problem.
You can just take the questions now.
Okay. I'm required to take questions now. So, let me have some questions. Suresh.
Well, I get this. The benefits of localization are pretty clear. Like, I get that aspect of the argument. What I'm wondering about is whether, if we foresee the system that you're describing actually taking off, and a lot of community currencies coming into play in various geographic locales, ecosystems like the seed stock, et cetera, whether we're actually going to be able to resolve the problems that are central to money in the first place. And what I mean by that is that the biggest evil, at least from my perspective, is the structural imbalance that arises with money, right? In other words, the centralization of financial power. A lot of people having money and you know, 1% of the population, 199, that whole thing, right?
I can answer the question.
So yeah, let me just finish the argument as to why that is. So the reason that becomes the case is because you have institutions like banks and so on that are required in order to guarantee the safety of money. This is part of it. So you have interest in the price of money, and the money becomes an end in itself, and it grows in and of itself, right? So the question is, for example, even if you have a system that doesn't have physical infrastructure, but you're using phone systems and so on, the threat exists, for example, for Anonymous to go hack your account. So you'll have to have institutions that guarantee the safety of your money, and all of a sudden money has a price. And all of a sudden that institutional framework develops, right? So.
Well, Suraj, if we take your premises, then your conclusions survive. But I don't. And the nature of the institutionalization that goes around a scarcity money which is presumed to have value is utterly ineffective around the money which is about relationship and agreement.
So you don't need banks?
No, we don't need banks at all. No.
Put it under your mattress? Or how do you...
No. It doesn't exist. How can you put something that doesn't exist under your mattress?
How do I know that I have X? How is it guaranteed?
Oh, what do you mean? How do you know what your account says?
Yeah.
You look it up. It's online.
Yeah, but Anonymous can fuck that up.
Ah, oh well.
That's the reality. That's the reality.
Well, the reality is that we're going to get hit by a meteor sometime soon too, you know. So catastrophic expectations are available. Basically, I look at it, it is a catastrophic expectation to assume that you're going to get hacked. Yes, it's a catastrophic expectation. It's not, yeah, and it's not unreal. It's a real expectation. But if you have rollback, hold on, Suresh, you got to listen if you're going to hear this. The thing about something that doesn't exist is it's very difficult to steal it. The thing about a community currency that is based entirely in database records is you can roll them back if you find any deceit or fraud. That's all there is to it. Basically, the anxieties we've got about money being stolen are because money stolen in a conventional sense means somebody's lost a pile of money and somebody's going to fight about who's going to pay it off their paycheck. With money like this, stealing is virtually impossible, and certainly it's redressable. So the anxiety issues are totally different. Now, it's a long conversation, Suresh. You and I ought to sit down for about 8 hours and have this conversation, and I think that'd be valuable. I think it would really make it more effective for you to understand what it's about. Bitcoin is useless, forget it. Can I take another question, please? Because no, you've had it, you can come to me later and talk about it. Next question, please.
In terms of logistics, for members of the community that don't have access or privilege to have a piece of technology that allows them to use this, how are we going to solve that problem?
The piece of technology we use in the Comox Valley is very like this. And it's also supported by bank accounts, community money accounts, but those can be driven by voice. Right? You just phone to the community number, leave a message. This is Joe, I want to pay Fred 45. That's all you got to do. So it's basically, it's not technologically dependent, and it's going to be technologically very effective. Part of the action in Africa particularly is that the G2 phones, you know, not the smartphones, but the other phones are becoming the instrument of financial management in much of Africa. Because the banking sucks completely, it's totally untrustworthy. But you can move money by phone. Well, this is going to be the way it happens. And right now, there's something like 4 billion phones on the planet. The phones are going to be the new method.
Yeah, my question is around the integrity of the money supply. So I like what you're saying. I like the idea of creating debt-free money and taking control over money. I really like it. There is the question of the integrity of the money supply. I'm sure I was referring to that. How do you know that someone, if anybody can create any amount of money they want at any time, the businesses, you're going to have a lot of trouble. Basic economic stuff like counterfeiting, inflation.
Actually, I don't think so. But I understand the reasons for the concern. It's a bit like when we used to think the world was flat. Our concern, well actually, we knew the world was round, right? But we figured we must have been born on top of it because we haven't fallen off yet. And so when Christopher Columbus wanted to sail around the world, people were worried that they'd slide off. They knew the world was round, they'd measured it by that stage, but gravity was still thought as an up and down thing, it wasn't thought of as an in and out thing. Because of that perception, they had no way to go. Similar issues about money supply in this model. Creating money is a question of issuing a promise and getting somebody else to take it. There's an economist called Chaim Minsky, whose line was, creating money is dead easy. Getting other people to take it is difficult. And that's the measure. If people are over-issuing, that is, if a business is saying that it's good for $1 million when it's not, it will find itself repudiated by the community as a whole. There's a certain amount of transparency that will make it really clear when somebody's overcooking their egg. That's all.
Then all the money that's been issued that people have paid for, $500.
No, that's well covered. That'll be well covered. In the community way model, in the seed stock model, that's why it's only businesses issuing, so that you have absolute transparency and control on that.
Well, my question, the follow-up question was, if an agency or business does overpromise and they collapse because of these problems, people And all the money that's in the community that has been bought with Canadian dollars is network money.
No, it's not. It's the interesting thing, and this is why I brought in this analogy about gravity being misunderstood in terms of moving around the planet. That money, suppose a business issues a bunch of money, and it's out there, it's circulating, it's done a bunch of transactions, and then the business blows up, dies, proprietor leaves town, whatever. The money is still out there. The money is still moving. The fact that one particular business is not in a position to redeem the money that it issued does not prevent that money from continuing to move.
But if there's been inflation in money...
Nah, you're bringing in words which... I'm not objecting to the words. I'm saying that this is a long discussion where you'd have to see the premises and the considerations about it. Inflation is one of the most weird words. I've been trying to find out what people think it means for 30 years. And it's utter abstract peculiarity. And it certainly when you get down to analyzing what happens to the value of money inside one of these networks, it's a different mathematics, it's a different performance. I'm going to ask you and Suresh to join me for an 8-hour symposium to work on this topic. And I'm sorry, it does take that long. Yes?
I was just going to mention that as far as like the electronic security goes, like if you want to have an account statement that like would withstand electronic disruption, you could have a program, you could have like an MD5 cryptographic hash on your account that can connect to it. And that is a printout, database wrap, rescan it, because it's cryptographically verified, you can say, yes, this is an authentic balance from this date, and we know that it exists. And also, as far as a physical model, I have my own little 8-hour time note here, and you put a date, you put a serial number, you keep your own records of your own currency, and I also even have a tiny hologram on it too.
Very nice. You see, this is the sort of stuff that is right there, it's off the shelf. And it's the sort of thing that will handle so many of the, I mean, the real concerns what you're raising. It's just that they're real in the old money. They don't have any relevance in this stuff. It's a totally different dimension. And that's really difficult to get your head around. You've actually got to blow your head out to get an understanding of it. Mimi?
Yes, hello. Yes, hi. Thank you. I'm guarding the money. I can talk loud enough. I appreciate the questions about maybe the risks inherent in what you're talking about. And when I hear you talk about civilizing corporate economy and becoming embedded in the community money, that feels really good in my body, and it makes sense. And part of me also goes into fear that because those things make so much sense, I'm wondering about the risk of others that don't want the taming of corporate economy and those that may not resonate with this embedding of the community money. So what about the inherent risk of this large body that we're moving against that may not want corporate structures tamed?
Well, I absolutely recognize that there are vested interests. The vested interests are terrified at the moment. You know, they have no idea how they're going to keep this house of cards balanced. And they're doing their best to get the last fish before, you know, it's rip and burn time for the corporate agenda. I used to think about this specifically in terms of banks. What would the banks do about this? Because it's going to shave down their interest rates, it's going to take a huge slice out of credit card
Or the
debt.
provincial government is what I'm wondering.
Oh, the provincial
Or
government?
the federal government.
Okay, let me deal with the banks first. We're actually going to make it safer for the banks to survive. And I think that's incredibly important. If we lose the banking system, we're going to lose so much in terms of pensions, in terms of the stability of our economy, in terms of all sorts of things which we need to persist. So I do not want the banks to fail. And I am personally, after a lot of analysis on this, come to the conviction that we're actually going to save the ass of the banks, and whether they like it or not. And I would say almost the same about the provincial government. One of my first conversations about this was with the Minister of Finance in '82. It was Hugh Curtis, Socret. And when I explained to him what this was all about, one of his things was, but you're taking away my power to redistribute wealth. I like this. Glad you got it, Hugh. Basically, we have to take control of government in various ways. And one of the ways is by breaking out of this punishment book business that they're pulling at the moment. You know, oh, you want jobs? Kill a school teacher. You know, it's sort of basically this divide and conquer is the game that all institutional power systems are playing. By bringing up our own power and being able to enhance the tax base and being able to reduce the loads on our social services costings, I don't see any downside for provincial government in a substantial way. Now, people like the Harper boys and the Dig It Up and Burn It team, you know, I think we're talking about an ideological fetish. And the only way we're going to deal with that is get rid of them. And that's electoral politics. So get out there and get the right person leading the NDP, whoever it is.
Who's that?
And let's get these guys back in their kennels. Because they're not to be trusted at all. And their belief in money as the consequence of hydrocarbons and anything that's in the ground, that's the one we've got to break out of. We've got to turn human productivity back into the dominant factor in our economies, rather than the capital and energy and tooling basically displace people. Thank you for your patience. I've given you about 15 times more than you are entitled to expect to be able to absorb in one shot. You will probably be going a bit for a couple of days about this. It will settle in. It all actually does make sense. And it's fun. And we will all prosper. Live long and prosper. Thank you very much.
Let's give a big thank you to Eternal Abundance. Let's give them a round of applause for making this space possible. Thank you. So March 19th, mark your calendars. This is going to be ongoing. Seed Stock is a brilliantly thought out potential on how you're going to be able to implement the first currency to support local food, where there's a lot of velocity of exchange. So you can actually see it being implemented in action. If this excites you, then be part of it, right? I mean, I hear a lot of, the thing is, we all have extremely strong minds. We're trained from a young age to have tremendously analytical minds. We can pick anything apart. But what is it really going to bring this is going to be the power of our hearts. Like, if we really believe that it's possible to find a community way, right, and we trust each other, and people resonate with that shared connection, that shared commitment, you're going to see it's going to work magics, right? The solutions of our problems of today are not going to come from the thoughts that we have in our head. It's going to come from the feelings that we have in our heart. And so if you guys are feeling something, you're feeling a glimmer of possibility or a new emotion of hope or joy at a currency that represents real human values and depth of connection, we will find a way to make it work. And it's not even as if we're starting from scratch. I mean, Michael Linton's been working on this for over 17 years. Right? 30 years. 30 years. Jordan got his master's degree in alternative currency. So he spent many, many years in thinking through a lot of these questions. So we have the opportunity with great minds in the room to bring our hearts and to meet with their hearts. Because what they're presenting here is not for their own personal gain or benefit. They're solutionaries, right? Solutions are coming from their soul, and they're saying, let's bring these solutions out, because this is the medicine that our world needs right now. And Rumi said, all medicine seeks is pain to cure. So all this money medicine is just going to be seeking pain to cure. And we are all healers in this, in our participation. So I hope to see you guys on March 19th. Hope you guys sign up, and look forward to seeing you very soon. Thank you. Good night.